welcome once again. So in today's class, we'll be looking at the topic that says population of Nigeria. So we'll be looking at the first part of this topic. And for this lesson, we'll try as much as possible to be able to describe the pattern of population distribution in Nigeria and also account for the variations in this distribution pattern in Nigeria. So as we know, Nigeria is a multi-ethnic society that is made up of the majorly the Igbos, the Yorubas, and the Hausas. And Nigeria is one of the most populated countries we have in the world, like the top 7 countries that are most populated in the world. And the population of Nigeria currently is over 210 million. And what then is population? Now, simply put it as this: population can be defined as the total number of people living within a geographical area or country at a particular time, or the total number of individuals that you can find in a particular geographical area at a specific point in time is the population of that place. So in this topic, we are actually going to consider Nigeria, and we are going to look at the population of Nigeria and the population distribution of Nigeria. Now, what is population size? Now, population size is simply the number of people living in a country or a given geographical area. Now, the thing is, population size can be determined by the use of census. So we actually conduct census, which is a head count, to decide the number of people in a particular geographical location, and also to decide if the population is increasing or if it is reducing. So a population census is something that is done, within a specific point in time in different countries around the world. And in Nigeria, population census is conducted every 10 years, though the last population census we had was in 2006. And for the population census, it helps the government actually to know the existing number of citizens in the country, and to be able to plan properly or budget properly for sectors like education, housing, transportation, and health. And also it helps the government too to plan ahead, to ensure that the facilities available will be sufficient for the growing number of people we have there. So have in mind that population census is the counting of the number of people, or the head count of the number of people. So during that period, they classify the population based on sex, based on age group, based on occupation, based on religion, and also based on nationality. So when they do such, they come up with a figure and a population data that the public can easily view. Now, let's talk about population distribution. In every country all over the world, population is usually distributed in different forms. And in some places in the world, we have places where the population distribution is high, where we have a low population distribution, and also places where we have a medium population distribution, or will I say population density. And Nigeria is not exempted from this. So what I'm saying in essence is that in Nigeria too, we have places where the population density is very high, and places where the population density is very low, and places where we have a medium or moderate population density. Now, if we look at Nigeria in terms of places where we have a high population density, you see that in such places in Nigeria, the population density is usually about usually above 300 people per square kilometer. And we have such places in the southwest, we have such places in the southeast, and we also have such places in the northern part of Nigeria. And we also have places in Nigeria where we have a medium population. And the population is usually from 200 to 300 persons per square kilometer. So in those kind of places, the population density is not high and it is not low. And it's common in places in the plateau region of Nigeria, and also in some savanna regions in the northern part of Nigeria. Then we also have the places where the density, of the population is very low in Nigeria. And in such places, you can easily find a population density of about 50 people per square kilometer. And when you go to places like the Niger Delta, places in the northern part of Nigeria, the Sahel region, at the extreme north of Nigeria, we usually have these population density. And this is due to the fact that the climate there does not really support the settlement of people, or will I say support most activities carried out by man in such a particular place. So as a result of that, the population density is usually low. So let's look at it one after the other. Now, areas of high population density in Nigeria. Now, like I said, high population density, we have above 300 persons per square kilometer. And in the southwestern Nigeria or the Yoruba land, if you go to places like Lagos, places like Oyo, places like Ogun State, we have, a high population density around such locations. Let's take, for instance, in Lagos State, places in the Lagos mainland, like Ikeja, places like Yaba, places like Ikotun, and the rest in Lagos State, places like Ibadan in Oyo State, places like Shagam, places like Ewekoro and the rest in the southwestern part of Nigeria. These places, they have a high population density. And if we go to the southeastern part and also the south in Nigeria, we have places in Rivers State, places in Imo State, places in Abia State, Akwa Ibom and Cross River State. Now, if you visit some of these places, you will experience a high population density. A good example is Port Harcourt City local government and Obiapo local government area, and also places like Uyo and places like Aba and Umuahia. Now, these places in the southeast and southern part of Nigeria, they have a high population density. Now, when we go to the northern part of Nigeria, a good example of a place with a high population density is the city of Kano. Kano has lots of industrial activities or commercial activities going on there. So as a result of that, the population density in that location is usually high. So these are some of the areas of high population density in Nigeria. Now we go over to the next, which is the areas of medium population density. Now, when we talk about this region, these places, we have a population density ranging from 200 persons to 300 persons per square kilometer. And such places are found in the Jos Plateau region, places in the Bauchi region, places in Sokoto region, places in the Guinea Savannah, and also in the Edo Delta region. Now, these places are moderately populated owing to the fact that we don't have a high rate of commercial activities or industrial activities on a large scale going on there. And, people prefer, to go to places of high population density. So as a result of that, in this region, we just have a moderate population and a moderate economic activity going on in that location. Then for the areas of low population density, the population density in this location is usually less than 50, and it can even fall to as low as 20 persons per square kilometer. And places like this in Nigeria can be found in the Sahel region of Nigeria, also the swampy and the riverine region in the southern part of Nigeria, that's Niger Delta, and also in the coastland areas. They have what? A low population density. And if you look at the Nigeria-Cameroon boundary, that is the eastern borderland of Nigeria, we have a low or sparse population density around there, and also some places in the middle belt of Nigeria, especially some places in Niger State, some places in Adamawa and the rest. These places, they have what? Low population density. And there are reasons for it, which we are going to look at as we progress further. Now, let's go over to the factors that influences population distribution. Now, we start with the first factor. The first factor is climate. As we all know that climate is the average weather condition of a place over a very long period of time, usually 35 years or 30 years. Now, climate is a very good factor that can decide the how high or how low a population density can be. Now, the thing is this: if you look at places with favorable climate like the southern part of Nigeria, you will see that those places, they have a high population density. That's because people prefer to reside or settle in places where the climate is favorable. Now, places like the Sahel region, we have a very harsh climate in such a particular geographical location. So as a result of such climate, the population there is usually low or sparse. Now, let's talk about the second factor that influences population distribution. The second factor is relief. Now, relief is the height of a place above the sea level, or how high or how low a place is from the level of the sea. And in Nigeria, places with a high relief, like the Jos Plateau, they have a cool climate for habitation. And you see people residing in such a particular location. So as a result of that, you have a moderate population density and a high population density in some parts of that state. And if you go to the eastern part of Nigeria, bordering Nigeria and Cameroon, we have a rugged type of topography. So as a result of that, the population distribution there is usually low. Now, let's talk about the next factor that can influence population distribution, which is soil. Now, people prefer to migrate to places where you have a good soil, places where agricultural activities will thrive more, like the southern part of Nigeria. They have fertile soils all over the southern part of Nigeria, and as a result of that, people into agriculture will always want to come to Nigeria and come to the southern part of Nigeria and engage in agricultural activities. So as a result of that, population in these places will spike or will increase, and that's the reason we have a high population density in some southern regions in Nigeria. And if you look at the opposite, which is the northern part of Nigeria, especially the Sahel region, the soil is sometimes poor, and agricultural activity is usually very difficult in such a particular location. So soil can as well increase the population density or reduce the population density. Then the next factor that can influence population distribution in a place is industrial development. So people are actually attracted to places where we have a high level of development industrially, and these places are usually seen as urban centers. So people go to urban centers to get jobs and to as well increase their standard of living. So you have more of the population migrating towards that direction. So if we have a place with a high level of industrial development, then we are definitely going to have a high population density. In the reverse aspect, if we look at the rural areas where industrial development is less, we will discover that the population density is usually very low in these villages, hamlets, or farmstead. So let's look at the next factor that can influence population distribution, and we call it cash crops. Now, cash crops are very important, especially in the agricultural sector, because they generate lots of what? Lots of income, not just for the individual, but for the government. So places where these cash crops are usually planted, harvested, and processed, we tend to have industries, heading towards that location, and also people or individuals heading towards that geographical location. Let's take, for instance, Kano. Kano is actually noted for groundnut and cotton. So as a result of that, we have so many people, living in such a particular place, engaging in the planting and harvesting of groundnut and cotton. And if you go to the southwestern part of Nigeria, let's say Ibadan to be precise, we have cocoa cultivation, thriving in such a particular place. And now when you look at these two places, you look at Kano and you also look at Ibadan, or the southwestern part of Nigeria, you realize that these places, they have a high population density. So as a result of these cash crops, we can as well have high population density. Now, the next thing that can influence population distribution is the presence of minerals. Places that are rich in minerals, tend to attract more people. They tend to attract individuals seeking for jobs. They tend to attract companies in need of natural resources, and they tend to attract the support and finance from the government. So the price of minerals will cause a high population density. But places where we have no minerals or lesser amount of minerals tend to have a low population distribution. Then we also have factors like historical factors. Some places can be populated owing to the fact that they have a rich historical background. Now, if you look at places in the western part of Nigeria and places in the northern part of Nigeria, you realize that places in Kano, places in Oyo State, they are populated owing to the fact that they existed long ago and they have a rich historical track or timeline. Let's take, for instance, the Oyo Empire. The Oyo Empire existed long ago, and up till date, people reside in such a particular location as a result of their rich historical background. So historical factors can as well promote this. Though we had sometimes where slave trade came into play and reduced some of these places with their population. Now, the next factor that can influence population distribution is the cultural factors. Now, if you look at Nigeria, we have lots of man-made activities going on. Let's use the southeastern part of Nigeria as an example. Now, if you look at places like Anambra State, you look at places like Abia State or Aba Umuahia to be precise, you see that they have a very strong commercial enterprise. And this commercial enterprise, and attachment to their homeland and also progressive leading will cause a high population density. That's why when you go to places like Onitsha, when you go to places like Aba, when you go to places like Umuahia, when you go to places like Nnewi and the rest, you see that the population density there is usually high. This is because of the man-made activities or the day-to-day activities of man, and also the infrastructure and the cultural features he has put in place. Due to all of this, we have a high population distribution. Now, what are the factors that contribute to the low population density in the middle belt of Nigeria? Now, the first factor is poor soil. Now, if you look at the middle belt of Nigeria, we have this laterite type of soil. In fact, the zone of the laterite soil is also found in this zone. And this laterite soil is usually rich in ion compounds, and these can affect what? The growth of plants. You take for instance places like Enugu State. You know, when you go to such places, we have what? Laterite type of what? Soil, and not all plants will thrive there. And also lack of major cash crops. It's also what? A factor that contributes to such. So in some of these places, we tend not to have cash crops like cotton, you know, like cocoa and the rest. We tend not to have it thriving in such a particular location. So that's a factor. And also lack of major mineral resources is a factor that contributes to the low population density in the middle belt in Nigeria. And we also have lack of major industries in, and also the influence of slave trade. You know, the slave trade, you know, was for the Atlantic slave trade and the Arab slave trade. So these slave trades activities that happened, you know, a century ago actually helped to reduce the population of what? Of the middle belt. So that's the reason for what? For the low population distribution we have in the middle belt region of Nigeria. So let's look at the advantages of high population density. Number one is that a place with a high population density will attract a large labor force. You know, and when we have a large labor force, we are going to have what? Increased productivity. Now, I want to use Lagos as an example. Now, if you visit Lagos State, you see that there's a very high what? Population density. And as a result of that, the labor force of that state is very what? High. And due to the fact that we have a high population density more than any other state in Nigeria, the level of productivity in that state beats the level of productivity in every other state in what? In Nigeria. And another advantage of high population density is that there will always be what? A large market for goods and services. So we'll have more people willing to buy your goods and buy your what? Services. And because of that, we are going to have what? High rate of what? Of production. So in Lagos State, for instance, which I will still use till the end, you see that there's a high level of production and there's a large market waiting for what? Waiting for such production. Then the next advantage of high population density is that, you know, economies of scales in production of services like defense and administration due to what? Cost sharing. So we'll have services like defense and administration, you know, on a very large scale, because these places, they desire these, they require this administration, they require this defense, and they require some other what? Sectors to thrive and be on a large scale. So when you have a high population density, you see that this administration and defense sector will work effectively to manage such a particular what? Population density. So as a result of that, you have, you know, scenarios where the government will place more emphasis on defense and administration on places where the population density is what? Is usually high. And as a result of that, they allocate more to such a particular what? Place. And also the next advantage is that a place with a high population density will attract foreign aid and also attract foreign what? Investments for development. So you see that investors from the Western world or from the Eastern world will want to invest in a place with high what? Population density, because they see what? A potential market and a potential growth in such a particular place. And another advantage of high population density is that it's going to provide diverse skills and talent, and it will increase what? Productivity. In a place where you have a high population density, we have a high division of labor, we have diverse talent, we have diverse skills, and there is no what? Lack for this. A good example is outside Nigeria is China. You know, the Chinese population is very large, and as a result of that, we have different skills and what? And talent, and the productivity of that country is very large. Now the same applies to Lagos too. Now the next one advantage we have is that government will generate a very large amount of revenue because of what? Taxation. So when the population is high, the amount of tax they will generate will also be high. So when we have high tax being realized, by the government from the people, we are going to have what? A high budget and a high what? Revenue allocation. Then the next advantage of population density is that it will cause effective planning and what? And development. In places in Nigeria, like Kano, Lagos, and Rivers State, where we have a high population density, you see that the government, both on the state and federal level, tend to plan more and plan effectively in order to manage such a high population density. And the next advantage of high population density is that it will help for easy dissemination of information. Information will be spread faster. Information will get around easily because of what? Because of the presence of what? Of a high population. Now, what are the disadvantages of high population density? Now, the first disadvantage is that there will be what? A resource strain. There will be a resource strain on the land and all the resources we have in such a particular place. So when you go to places where you have a high population density, we begin to have shortage in land resources, shortage in natural resources, and also the social amenities present there will be what? Will be strained and used so much. Then we also have things like congestion, urban congestion, and due to this congestion, we begin to have things like problems, social problems like prostitution, like crimes, and the rest. And also, places with high population density will usually experience food shortage from lack of insufficient food supply, because the population of the place is more than the available resources, and this is overpopulation. Then the next disadvantage of high population density is unemployment from lack of job opportunities. Now, in places where we have high population density, jobs are usually scarce. And when jobs are scarce, we now have a high rate of unemployment. And another disadvantage of high population density is that due to the presence of a large amount of people, we will now have what we call housing problems. It will be very difficult for people to acquire land, and also very difficult for people to acquire houses and places where they can stay. And high population density can cause traffic congestions on road. You go to a particular place, and when you're coming back, there is a long congestion of vehicles. You're stuck in the traffic. These are some of the problems that you experience in a place where the population is high. And we also have scenarios like environmental pollution, from factories, from vehicles around, and from human activities. And places where you have a high population density, the government is going to spend more in maintaining and running such a particular place. And places with high population density also experiences what we call the low per capita income, and living standard is being affected, because when the population density is high, you see that the standard of living will somehow drop a little. And we also have balance of payment problem in places with high population density, and we also have slums and ghettos also found in places with high population density. A good example is in Lagos, and also in Rivers State. Okay, so the last disadvantage of high population density is high dependency ratio, burdening the workforce. Now, in a place where the population density is very, very high, it also means that in some cases the dependent population will be high. And when we talk about dependent population, we're talking about people that are below the working class age and above the working class age. People in their 60s, and people that are teenagers, and babies and infants, they all fall in that category, and we call them the dependent population. So where we have high population, especially for this dependent population, there will be a burden on the independent population, because the dependent population will depend on the independent population for what? For survival. And this is a problem in places where you have a high population density. Now, let's quickly look at the importance of population size, or the implications of population size. Now, the first importance is that population size, determines labor force size. Now, what I mean is this: the larger the population, the larger the workforce will have in such a particular place. And also, it determines the consumer market size, in the sense that when we have a large population, it means that we are going to have a large consumer base. And population size, this determines the per capita income and resource available per person. So a higher population will mean a lower per capita income, and it's going to affect the population of that place. And population size affects the standard of living. So when we have a lower per capita income, it will affect our standard of living. People would not live on a higher standard, and that's a problem of high population density. And you see countries like Nigeria, countries like China, countries like India, facing such a particular issue. So it affects standard of living. And the next implication is that it will influence foreign aid and foreign investment. Places with larger population will attract more aid, and also attract investment from different countries all over the world. And also, the population size can affect a country's international recognition and status. And the higher the population, the higher the influence in some places. A good example is China, a good example is USA, a good example is India, and even in Africa, a good example is Nigeria. These places, we also have more recognition and more influence. And also, the population size can impact government's expenditure on infrastructure and social services. Places with a very large population, they require more spending and more building. So when you go to such places, we have governments building more schools, building more hospitals, and building more institutions, just to cater for the population. And the next implication the population size has on a place is that it will affect the import levels. So a place with a very large population will have a very large importation of goods and services, unless they are they are into full-time industrialization or full-time industrial activities. But if they are not, they will import more goods and services to cater for the growing population. Now let's go over to age structure of population. Now when we talk about age structure of a population, we are actually talking about the distribution of people across different age groups. Now for the age structure, it shows the number of individuals that belong to each age bracket within the overall population. Now let's look at that of Nigeria, the age structure of Nigeria. Now in Nigeria, we have from 0 to 5 years as the preschool age, then from 6 to 11 years as the primary school age or primary school going children. Then we have from 12 to 16 years as secondary school going adolescents. Then from 17 to 21 years, you see students in colleges and higher education like the universities. Then from 22 to 55 years, the working age adults comprising the labor force. And from 56 years and above, we have the elderly people. Now these are the categories of age distribution we have in Nigeria. Now, this age group from 0 to 18 years and from 60 years and above, we call them the dependent population. They are called the what? The dependent population. So this age bracket, they depend on the labor force for their what? For their upkeep or for their survival in terms of what? In terms of finance and welfare being provided to them. Now, we see them as the non-what? Non-workers. But from 18 to 60 years, they are what? They are seen as the working population or the labor what? The labor force. So this category of people, they work, they engage in economic activities, they engage in industrial activities, and they engage in all manner of activities to generate what? Money and welfare. And they as well take care of what? People that are not within this bracket. So when you analyze the age structure of a particular country, it will help you to understand the economic prospects as well as the investment needs and the social policy of that country. That's because you go to some countries and you realize that the dependent population is more than the independent population. And you go to some countries and they have a higher ratio of independent population to dependent population. So understanding this will help you to what? To get more insight about that what? Country. So quickly, let's look at the importance of age structure of population. Now, understanding the age structure of a particular population will help the government to budget and provide more services. So let me give an instance. If the government, if it realizes that the number of children is in the age structure is very high compared to other brackets, so you see that the government will what? We invest more in education. They will invest more in building what? Schools. So if the population of people from 55 and above is very high, the government will spend more money on what? On the health sector. So it helps the government to what? To budget more. And also, the age structure of a particular place will help to decide the ratio of the dependent population to the independent population. It will help us to know the people that are working and the people that are not what? Working. And the next importance is that it will help to shape the market demand and the consumption pattern we have in a particular place. Age groups, they have different needs. So the needs of people in the adolescence is different from the needs of people in the infant age, and it's also different from people in the old age. So when you understand the age structure of a particular place, you can easily understand the market demand in that particular place. And also it influences production pattern. Now, when you understand the population age structure, it will be very easy to know the type of goods and services that can be produced and rendered there. And it will help a lot when it comes to production. And also it will indicate the current and future labor size. Understanding the age structure of a particular place will help you to know the current labor force size, and it will help you to predict the future labor size of that particular place. And it also helps to drive import and export trend, and also it affects per capita income and standard of living. A higher population, lower per capita income and lower standard of living. So these are the things that affects it. And the last one is that the age structure of a place will influence the birth rate and the death rate. A place with a higher reproductive age will cause a higher birth rate. So let's quickly look at the exam guide. Let's look at a question from our exam guide. So we go to 2021. We go to 2021. Let's look at the theory. So we look at question number 1. Question number 1C. Now, the question says, explain 3 advantages associated with countries of high population density. So, advantage number 1 is that there will be what? A higher what? Labor force. A place with a high population density will have a high labor force. And also, when we have a higher population density, we have a what? A large market. So that's the second advantage of high population density. Those places will have a large what? A large market, because the people there will be willing to what? Willing to buy. And the next advantage of high population density is that the government will generate more what? More tax. The higher the population, the higher the what? The tax generated. And also, the higher the revenue, that is being what? Gotten by the government. So these are what? The advantages of places with high population density. And with this, we have come to the end of this class. Thank you for watching till this moment. See ya.